Yourself, what do you make of politics now? Right now, are you uplifted or depressed when you look at this new range of debate?
Well, I think the events of the year show more than ever that both our electoral system, our parliamentary method of doing business, and the background party organisation, which is meant to feed through the people's will into its decisions, none of them are fit for purpose. And where I would locate the problems that have particularly come to a head in 2015 are in the kind of intersection between what I think of as virtual politics and what I think of as actual politics. And I think that all of the main problems that both parties are facing result from a failure on the part of their leadership to apprehend that distinction.
Just explain what you mean by virtual and actual.
Well, take the bombing of Syria, for example. I don't think there's anybody in this country anymore who is in doubt that the reason why the British government has launched airstrikes in Syria is wholly to do with domestic politics, and the extent to which it's to do with international politics, it's to do with relationships with allies. In other words, the stated objective of eliminating Islamic State as an existential threat to Britain is not why those sorties are being flown.
Douglas Murray, I mean, in a way, we've got real politics and great gulfs between the political parties. Do you think that's a good thing, or is it all a bit low rent?
Well, it can be both, of course. I mean, it's a very interesting situation. There's obviously a very large gulf between the parties. I'm deeply sceptical of those people who think that anything that's happening in the Labour Party is new. In his intervention into the Labour Party leadership debate, unhelpful as it was in some ways, Tony Blair did get it right when he said anyone who thinks that Jeremy Corbynism is new doesn't remember the 1970s. Of course, a lot of people don't remember the 1970s or have not even heard of the 1970s. So it looks like we might play a bit of that political battle all over again.
But what about the cynicism of bombing Syria, as Will Self sees?
Oh, I'm not sure that you can say it's entirely cynical. I think the more interesting thing about the Syria thing is that we see Parliament...
No, I just don't think it's the stated... Actually, the objectives have been kind of stated. In the public debate, people have admitted to the fact. When Cameron got up and said what his end game there was, it was so tissue-thin that nobody had no credibility.
And the most interesting thing about the Syria debate, to my mind, is that Parliament spoke for 10 hours. I think everyone agrees the best speech of the day was Hilary Benn, bringing out the heaviest political rhetoric of the parliamentary and indeed political left. Franco, Hitler, internationalism, and so on. He did this to suggest that that people vote for about 2 planes to go a few miles further north over a border that doesn't exist. And that, I think, is a striking thing. How is it that the House of Commons talked about this as if World War III were about to start, when really it was a very specific and localized tactical set of strikes that were being proposed? To my mind, there is undoubtedly a gulf between the real politics that go on and the sort of grandiosity, which a lot of politicians, we've got to admit, enjoy.
And language becomes a real fierce focus of debate, doesn't it? You've got George Osborne talking about Britain getting its mojo back over bombing Syria. And then you've got a huge row over whether Jeremy Corbyn should attend a Stop the War dinner because of something somebody wrote.
Yes. Well, I mean, what lies behind this is that neither of the main parties have really got a handle on their membership or what's funneling into them. And I've got to take Douglas to task. For a start, he wasn't there in the 1970s. And secondly, history doesn't repeat itself in the same way. I mean, if you follow Marx, it only repeats itself as farce or tragedy. Sure. And the fact of the matter is that the problem for the Labour Party is that even the left-right ding-dongs that you saw in the 70s and 80s, at least were in the context of an economy and a method of social and productive organisation that favoured the kind of socialism that Jeremy Corbyn represents.
Do you think it matters whether Corbyn goes to the Stop the War dinner? I mean, we all know what he stands for, don't we? I mean,
some people do. First of all, I was actually present for a very brief time in the 1970s. Well,
I'm sorry,
I don't remember it very deeply. I don't remember it deeply. But look, the point with Stop the War is that Jeremy Corbyn has an irreconcilable problem, which is that his only USP is the idea that he is in some way deeply, fervently idealistic and principled. The problem is that as his leadership goes on, those principles are going to have to give one by one. Stop the War is a crackpot organisation. Most of the time it isn't about stopping wars, it's for the other side winning. And this organisation is obviously not one Labour leader can turn up to. However, Stop the War constitute the kind of people who are Jeremy Corbyn's base. So this is a real problem, and I think over the coming years we're going to see this happen again and again. And actually, the idea that Jeremy Corbyn is this deeply principled person will be something that will suffer significant damage.
But he's not imploding yet, is he? I mean, you come on this programme a couple of times and said, oh, he'll be gone. I think you said he'd be gone by September.
Well, he said he is gone already. I mean, he's a bit of a ghost in at the feast in that way. I mean, Labour, as I said before on this programme, have been hoisted by their own clicktivist petard. But I actually think that both the main parties are facing this virtual actual problem. They no longer have a feed through from the popular will of their membership to an enunciated policy. So they can't really pose themselves as legitimate, and that's why rhetoric becomes so overblown.
But is it important for him then to go to the Stop the War dinner and show that he hasn't changed?
He should have got up at the get-go when he won the leadership and stated clearly and unequivocally what his position was on Britain punching above its weight on the international.
The problem is, that if Jeremy Corbyn did that, then people would see just how unelectable he is. Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, maybe that's why they voted for him.
Well, Jeremy Corbyn's whole, foreign policy history is, being very, very easy on most anti-Semitic organisations.
We've got to leave it there.
People will see this and they'll see how ugly it is.
We're out of time. Thank you very much.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.